What's up, peeps? So I was, you know, talking about my studies and what it is I like to do and the people I'm looking for. Um, yeah, I would love to find people that do those kind of studies, all those that like that type of stuff, the history, the alphabet, they study all that stuff, algebra. If you're into that stuff, message me, man. Definitely message me, especially if you study the Bible and you look for all these different things in the Bible. I'm interested into knowing what it is that you know. I would love to hear what it is that is on your mind. If you've been watching my videos, it'd be awesome. So I'm gonna go smoke and I'm gonna read Deuteronomy. I'm gonna finish Deuteronomy 19. I think it's an important thing. It's an important passage that should be read. Very important. And it's the number's important too. It's 19. And it's 9 and it's 1 together. So it's chapter 19 of Deuteronomy, which is Moses. Moses spoke this, and this was right before he left. Deuteronomy was basically Moses's last talk before he passed away to all the people of Israel before they went to the promised land, before he passed away, because God wouldn't let him go to the promised land because of what he did. Well, you have to read the story, but I'm gonna go ahead and read it. It says, when God your God throws the nations out of the country that God your God is giving you, and you settle down on their cities and houses, you are to set aside 3 easy, accessible cities in the land that God your God is giving you as your very own. Divide your land into thirds, this land that your God is giving you to possess, and build roads to the towns so that anyone who accidentally kills another can flee there. This is the guideline for the murderer who flees there to take refuge. He has to have killed his neighbor without premeditation and with no history of bad blood between them. For instance, a man goes with his neighbor into the woods to cut a tree. He swings the axe, the head slips off the handle and hits his neighbor, killing him. He may then flee to one of these cities and save his life. If the city is too far away, the avenger of the blood racing in that hot-blooded pursuit might catch him, since it's such a long distance, and kill him even though he didn't deserve it. It wasn't his fault. There was no history of hatred between them. Therefore, I command you, set aside 3 cities for yourselves. When God your God enlarges your land, extending its borders as he solemnly promised your ancestors by giving you the whole land he promised them, because you are diligently living the way I am commanding you today, namely to love God and your God, and do what he tells you all your life, and when that happens, then add 3 more to these 3 cities so that there is no chance of innocent blood being spilled in your land. God, your God, is giving you this land as inheritance. You don't want to pollute it with your innocent blood and bring blood guilt upon yourselves. On the other hand, if a man with a history of hatred toward his neighbor waits in ambush, then jumps him, mauls him, and kills him, and then runs to one of these cities, that's a different story. The elders of his own city are to send for him and have him brought back. They are to hand him over to the avenger of blood for the execution. Don't feel sorry for him. Clean out the pollution of wrongful murder from Israel so that you'll be able to live well and breathe clean air. So, there's more to it, which I'll keep on reading. It says, don't move your neighbor's boundary markers, the long-standing landmarks as set up by your pioneer ancestors defiling their property. It says, and defining the property. It says, you cannot convict anyone of a crime or sin on the word of one witness. You need 2 or 3 witnesses to make a case. It says, if a hostile witness stands to accuse someone of a wrong, then both parties involved in the quarrel must stand in the presence of God before the priests and judges who are in the office at that time. The judges must conduct a careful investigation. If the witness turns out to be a false witness and has lied against his fellow Israelite, give him the same medicine he intended for the other party. Clean the polluting evil from your company. It says, people will hear of what you've done and be impressed. That will put a stop to this kind of evil among you. Don't feel sorry for the person. It's life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot. So, God was really trying to establish order within the Israelites, through Moses, through the last speech, before they went to the promised land. And God has given people many chances. Look at the United States. I mean, look at our Constitution. It's one of the best written piece of paper in the history of the world. It's almost as perfect. It's almost as good as the Bible itself. Which is the perfect law. There is no law that's more perfect than Jesus' law. It's not. God's 10 Commandments is the most perfect law that no one can follow. That's why we need a Savior. But, there's so many things that was important in this story that really, you have to really put in a retrospect and reflect. And, there's so many topics we can touch on. First, boundaries. It says, don't move your neighbor's boundary markers, the long-standing landmarks set up by your pioneers or ancestors, defining their property. So, people love crossing people's boundaries, first of all. And we're not talking hopping the fence in my neighbor's yard. I'm talking personal boundaries as well. Nobody knows how to talk anymore. Nobody knows how to be a gentleman or to be a lady anymore. I'm not saying that there aren't people that are out there, but for the most part, as the minority, you know what I mean? Just regular people, there's no courtesy anymore. Like, I don't even see men hold the doors open for women anymore. I don't. Like, I don't see kids go, like, when they go on dates, I don't see guys holding the door, like, going to the door, holding the door open for the girl. I don't see it. I don't see the guys, like, I see it here and there, but not as often as you would think, That surprises me. But there's another thing, too, God has established a law that's perfect already in the Bible that we all can follow. And it's crazy to me because if you read Leviticus and you read these laws, they're really, really actually very simple. And God has already thought about all the innocent blood, you know what I mean? Those car accidents and everything that has happened, you know what I mean? All this stuff. And if you read the Bible, it clearly explains what we should do and what we shouldn't do. What's crazy too is the Bible even gives us a answer for what we should do about global debt, about world debt, about country debt. Yeah, I'm serious. It does. Read Leviticus. Go ahead. It's one of the best. It's the law. Leviticus is really actually a hard read though. You can't read it unless you really just want to read what laws there are. And there's a lot of them. That's why, back in the day, all these people like the Pharisees and all these different tribes and groups of people, that all these names that we're unfamiliar of, when you read the Bible, they're groups of people that would follow all these laws that were in the Torah, and they would come up with all these laws, man. There's like thousands of them, man. Like, if you look up Jewish laws, like, there's so many fucking laws. There's so many of them. And people, like, that's how people were back in the day, too, is they were self-righteous. So, like, how people act snooty now? People back then, they would follow all these laws, right? And if nobody followed these laws like they did, they weren't worth anything, that type of stuff. So that's how it was in high society. So a lot of, people from low society would strive to be perfect, like God. They all wanted to be perfect. That's how society was back then, People don't put that in perspective in retrospect. People were more in tune with themselves back then, They didn't have all these things that they were attached to, you know. Um, People spent more time together, families spent more time together. It's the fact, it's true. It's a truth. But, you know, they all aspired to be, you know, perfect, and they were following all these laws, and that's what became the problem. Is the focus was on following the law. The focus wasn't on the person anymore. Like I mentioned in another video about money, how, you know, I've read in a book, and, you know, I've heard in many other places, um, they take apples and fly them from England to Africa just to wax them and fly them back and burn all that fuel just to make an extra buck. And it's crazy because fossil fuel is unrenewable. So even though they made an extra dollar, they just did all that, burn all that fuel, all that global warming just to make an extra dollar. And then everything else that, you can think of that happened on that plane, you know what I mean? Or drug smuggling, whatever else, you could think of, you know what I mean? It's hypothetical, you know, but just to make a dollar, it doesn't, the focus isn't on the person anymore. And that's when it becomes a problem, you know, I've read many books, about what it is that we should do, as a world, or, what a country can do to solve all these issues. And follow the law, follow the Bible, but, we gotta do like organic farming, We all these cities that depend on all these farms, bringing in all this food from all these ports and all these ocean going vessels that are getting stuck outside the ports, and they're going back and forth in the oceans, and they're just dumping raw sewage into the ocean. And instead of like, because you got to remember, they're patrolling these places, right? They know that they're gonna wait to dump it out when they're not being patrolled in the middle of the ocean, And Canada has really lax laws. They've been dumping it in Canada. They'll go north and dump it. And you gotta remember is a ship has to make money. So, a vessel has to make money. So when they go, all that stuff that's coming from China, people are not realizing this. I worked in the metal industry. I've been in the metal industry my whole life. My dad has been scrapping his whole life. I've ran metal industries. I'm telling you, I know what I'm talking about. The vessels gotta come, these cargo ships come all the way here with all these products from China that all these corporations send. We have all these companies, in China that build all this stuff, make all this stuff, pollute all this stuff, do all this pollution, right? We send it over here. It's these corporations, these white people live here, and I'm not just saying white people, but and I'm not even saying, because you gotta remember these countries, people in other countries come over here to do this too. Whole countries set up corporations in our country. Whole countries do. That's how they survive. Just so you know, some countries, they survive off of corporations that are ran in America. That's how their country survives. Just so you know. In our country, what's crazy is America gives them cutbacks, gives them money for this. They don't want our country to know, our people to know that. I'm just letting you know. But there's so many other topics I gotta touch on, but anyways, these boats, they gotta make money. So when they bring all that stuff here, they got to fill it back up, right? They don't want to go back there empty-handed. So before Trump came in, all that tariff stuff happened, they were taking all the scrap back to China, and they were taking all the garbage back. So all the landfills, all of our garbage was going back to China. That's why China was getting so polluted, because they were buying all this stuff. And, the China state were buying all the plastic, all that stuff. And that's why their country got so polluted also as well. and the president that was running, not only was he running the same time as in China as Trump was running in our country, he was also telling everyone in China that the no baby law wasn't going to be in effect anymore. So, the two child, person law, they could have as many kids as they want. So they weren't killing babies anymore. And then not only that, he also stopped bringing in trash, all the trash that was coming into China. So you gotta put that in retrospect. All that trash, not only was America affected, Europe was affected, like Great Britain, all those places were affected. They didn't know what to do with the trash, and the trash has been piling up. And a lot of these companies are selling the trash to all these other countries, right? That are buying it now. But you know what they're doing with it? They're dumping it in the ocean without even the countries buying it. We're giving it to them thinking that, they're going to be putting it in the ground, and they're not. They're just dumping it. It's crazy. And, I know all the stuff on the internet. I've been doing the research. I'm a computer geek. I have access. I can get access to things that normal people wouldn't be able to, you know what I mean? News, that type of stuff. And I talk to people globally. My woman's from another country. I'm about to be going to Mexico City to get married. So, you put that in retrospect. But, I'm going to read some more, but I got to get going, man. I got to get going. I decided to head to St. Clair Shores yacht place. It's about 2-hour bike ride from here. 21 miles.